Grab your Bibles. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is great to be with you this morning. I am excited about today. Just as way of clarification, he did a great job with the announcements of this, but it's really simple, okay? So there are a set of 4 leaves back there, 4 different colors, and those are for your stage of life. Everybody probably fits into at least 2 categories, and those are for Thanksgiving. So if you have something you're thankful for, find the leaf that's in your stage of life. The kind of leaf does not matter. Write it down. There are 5 leaves back there that are shaped like these maple leaves. Those are for prayer requests. There are 5 different situations you might find yourself in life. Write down the prayer request based upon that state or that situation of life that you find yourself in. So that's how the color cordon system works. So prayers and thanksgivings, right? And both correspond. And here, as we head into Thanksgiving season, we're going to be kind of thinking about prayer and thanksgiving and what that means for us. This morning, we're going to be kind of wrapping up our look specifically at this song, The Jesus Way, and we're going to be looking at kind of the call to action. We've looked at a lot of different aspects of the Jesus Way and Jesus' life, and of course we're not done with the life of Jesus, but we've really kind of come to a place where we know who he is, we know who Jesus is, and we know the cost of following him. We know that he's calling us to a different life stage. So now it's one of those things where now you have to make a decision. Are you going to follow him or not? That's basically the whole message in a nutshell. I can sit down, right? Now, you guys know what this week is, right? This week is election week, right? Election 2025. Now, we are so blessed in this country to be able to have a say in what happens within our government, because those who are in positions of authority and decision making derive that authority from us, right? We give them that ability to lead us. We elect those people. Now, on a really good election year, we have 2/3 of people show up. Now that's on a presidential election. We have about 2/3 of eligible voters show up and say, hey, here's what I think. All right? That's a good election. That's a good election. 2/3 show up for that. In a off year, like this year, a good year is half. Most, it's like 1/3 of people show up. And I'm not even going to get into how sad the numbers are in a primary, which is like an election leading up to an election. Now, I'm a preacher. I don't care about politics. I really try to avoid politics. And this is not going to be a hot take on politics today. I'm going to try very hard not to get into politics. But here's the thing. We have people all across this country, and this is nothing new. This is human nature. But leaders want you to buy in. Leaders want you to fall in line. They want you to follow their leading. And this coming week, we have decisions to make. There's a number of different initiatives on the ballot about the Texas Constitution. There's a bunch of different things in different positions locally that are up for election. I got to go do my homework before I walk into the voting booth. I really liked it in Colorado, where I just kind of sat down with the ballot and then researched everything and filled it out thereof. Now I have to do a closed book test, and I got to remember what I study, and I got to look it all up ahead of time. So it's more work here. I liked it back there. You just fill it out. All right? But I'm not getting into the politics of it. But the point that we have people who call you to follow them, to support them, to jump into their camp, right? And what a wonderful opportunity it is here in America to be able to give our opinion, to share our perspective. Now, it is kind of sad how few people actually take advantage of that opportunity. I know we all like to be frustrated, and we all like to gripe, right? It's just like the weather. It's one of those things. Oh, can you believe the weather today? Oh, I don't know. We can always find something to gripe about, right? But we have an opportunity to let our voice be heard, right? Now, when it comes to the church and over the last couple of weeks, we've been looking at this Jesus way, and really what I want to do is I want to call you to follow Jesus. I don't think I've been shy about that. I want you to make a choice to follow Jesus. Not to follow this politician or that politician, not to follow this political party or that political party. I want you to follow Jesus. I want Him to be Lord of your life. I want Him to be the one who is influencing you and how you view the world, and then therefore how you then interact with that world. And I think it is so important that we take stock of those decisions that are before us to make that decision. Because either you choose intentionally what your decision and what your values are, or you're going to be pushed along by the current, by whoever has the most persuasive argument, or whoever is able to grab a hold of a fear that you have, and then they're going to blow it out of proportion, and they're going to use that to get you to support them. But here's the thing, we serve a God. You have the chance to serve and follow Jesus, who is Lord of all. We don't have to act out of fear. We win. We're victorious. That blood has washed us clean, and that puts us in a very different state. It was read for us earlier, but I want to read it again. In Luke chapter 6, Jesus says this in the Sermon on the Plain. He says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, let me show you what that person is like. He is like a man who builds a house, he digs down deep, and he lays his foundation upon the rock. And then when the flood arises, the streams break against that house, and it cannot be shaken because it is well built. But the one who hears and does not do them, he's like a man who builds upon the ground without a foundation. And when the streams break against it, it immediately falls, and the ruin of that house is great." Jesus looks out over the crowd and he says, "You call me Lord, Lord." Okay, good. I'm glad you acknowledge me as Lord. I'm glad you choose to follow me. But understand that if you're going to follow me, if you're going to have me be the Lord of your life, you have to do what I say. You have to actually follow my teachings. Because if you don't, what you're going to be like is this house here. It doesn't have a good foundation, and it's in ruin. And all the money and all the materials and all the effort that has gone into building that home is now for naught because it has a foundation issue. And now it's not salvageable. Now you got to tear it all down. You got to start all over. So the question is, if you're going to say, yes, I choose the Jesus way, and we have looked at who he is, and we've looked at the cost of following him, and we've looked at the benefit of following him, and you raise your hand and you go, yes, I will follow Jesus. Great. That's what I've wanted. That's been the focus of this entire year of study, to get you to the point that says, yes, I want to follow him. Now here's the trick. You have to do it. Being a Christian is about more than simply saying, yes, I follow Jesus. It's about more than simply being in this building on a Sunday morning or joining us online. It is about what we do on Monday. Actually, it's what happens from the time we leave this building until we come back. Because we can put on a face and we can look like Christians and we can act like Christians here. But what are we doing out there? How is it impacting the way that we live? Look at what Jesus says before this in the Sermon on the Plain. Jump back to verse 43. For no tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its fruit. For a fig are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from bramble bushes. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of the evil treasures within his heart. For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So here's my question for you. You say, yes, I follow Jesus. Yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, He's the Lord of my life. Okay, what's your fruit? What's your fruit? What are you producing? How are you impacting this world? What is the fruit of that? You follow Jesus, good. I'm glad. I want that. But more than you saying, yes, I follow Jesus, I want you living out what Jesus would do as soon as you leave these doors. Not just while you're in here. You want to know what's going to bring about a true revival and bring about more people in the pews here? You living out your faith genuinely. That's what's going to do it. Not what you say, what you do. Think about it this way. Would Jesus post what you post on Facebook? Would Jesus post what you post on Instagram? Would Jesus like what you like on social media? Would Jesus say what you say to your friends? Would Jesus say what you say to His enemies, to your enemies? Because to be a Christian means to be a Christ follower, to follow what Jesus does. We've been looking at what Jesus did. The question then becomes, how do we translate that into what we do? Do people see Jesus in me? I'm not saying you have to be holier than thou and walk around all pious and your hands crossed. That's not what I'm talking about. We've seen how Jesus interacts with people. We've seen how Jesus cares for others. Is that what you care about? Is that what you say? Is that what you support? Because the demands in this world, the people vying for your attention and your support are abundant. So who are you going to hook up with? Who are you going to hook your cart to? And the fact of the matter is, it's not simple. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you fall into any of the camps outside of this building. Because their values are not our values. The values of the kingdom are different. Look at what Jesus says in Luke chapter 9. We're going to start here in verse 23. He says, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. Whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever would lose his life for my sake will save it. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world, yet he forfeits himself? And whoever is ashamed of me and my words, of him the Son of Man will be ashamed when he comes in his glory, in the glory of the Father and the holy angels. But I tell you the truth, there are some standing here who will not taste death until the day they see the kingdom of God. When we say we take up our cross, we're not talking about a golden little emblem that hangs around our neck. We're so far removed from what the cross truly represents that we have to get this provocative, because this is exactly how provocative it was. I'm not saying you have to take off your golden crosses or your silver crosses. I'm not against you wearing or not wearing them. But we have to understand what it means. Take up the instrument of death not to take against others, but for yourself. The cross was a cruel instrument of torture and death. Agony. Agony. And in our culture today, it would be like taking up your electric chair, taking up your guillotine, putting yourself to death, and following Jesus. Yes, this is provocative. Because that's what Jesus was saying. Take up your instrument of death. Not the nice little symbol that you have in your back wall. I was once at a church where they had a wall filled with these decorative crosses. That was so weird to me. Somebody had the right heart, I think. But do we understand what it means to take up our cross? To put ourselves to death. Not to live for me, not to live for my values, not to live for my wants, but to put the kingdom's values first. This is hard. This is not easy. This is not simple. This is not straightforward. This costs greatly. And we've looked at the cost, but we've also looked at the value. That's what we looked at last week. Right? If you take my life, my hope is heaven. What a great hope we have. What a sure hope we have. Right? I think we sometimes lose the message of Hebrews 11. Let me highlight some things within the text. Part of the tapestry that is woven there by the Hebrew writer. Starting in verse 10. For he was looking forward to the city whose foundations and designers and builder is God. By faith Sarah received power to conceive, even though she was past the age, and considered him faithful who had promised. Jump up to verse 13. These all died in faith, not having received the thing promised, but having seen them. They greeted them from afar, having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles upon the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of the land from which they had gone out, they would have had no opportunity, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desired a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. I think I skipped something. Yeah, verse 24. For by faith Moses, when he had grown up, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ of greater wealth than all the treasure of Egypt, for he was looking forward to a reward. And all those who by faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained the promise, stopped the mouths of lions. But listen to the list of people that he gets to later. He says, some were tormented, refused to accept release, so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered, being mocked and flogged, even in chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in the skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in the deserts and in the mountains and in dens and in caves of the earth. And these all were commended for their faith. They did not receive what was promised, since God had provided them something better, that we would not receive it apart from each other. Paul will put it this way. He says, we are ambassadors of Christ. This world is not my home. My hope is heaven. I don't follow this world. I follow Jesus. Do we live that way? We don't often see this because we are blessed to live in a country that leads the world in technology and influence and all these things. But powerful countries set up embassies around the world to share and influence and to help others. And this is the work of ambassadors that Paul is talking about. Will we consider what it's like to live as an alien and a stranger in this world, in America? What does it look like for you to be an ambassador for Christ, seeking to influence others for Him? Holding up the values and the standards of the kingdom of God, not of this world. That's going to be different. I grew up in a military family, hunting, fishing. I love my Second Amendment right. Right? Gun-toting, hunting, G.I. Joe, right? As a Christian, that's not one of my values. Understand me here. My value is peace. I don't want a fellow Christian to be killed. I don't want my enemy to be killed. I don't want the world at war. You look at the cost of just a missile. We could feed Harlingen with the cost of a missile. Don't tell me we can't make the world a better place. We're spending our money, we're diverting our resources to killing each other. Now, I'm also not saying that we should just roll over and accept the leaders of whoever. I have kids I care about deeply in Ukraine. I am very much of the opinion that Putin is not only anti-Christian, but anti-life. I'm against what he's doing over there, and we cannot just roll over. But I'm not advocating for war. So yes, I hold two things simultaneously in great tension. Right? But as an ambassador of Christ in this world, I'm not advocating for war. I understand its need. I understand why these things happen. But I'm here for peace. We have to be able to separate our interests here upon this earth from our heavenly interests. And when the two come to shove, we need to follow Christ. We need to understand that it's not only what we do, but it's the way we do it that matters. Because we represent Him. And when we pair ourselves up with organizations in this world, and they become so closely associated with Christianity, they will drag us down. They will hurt our reputation. It is so important that we constantly be looking at how do we help and put our faith into action. So important. I don't know about you, but I look around and I look at the news today. Like I said, I'm not political. I'm not going to get into politics. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to who to vote against. But I will tell you the values of the kingdom. I will tell you what I think Jesus would do in this moment. What Jesus would post. What Jesus would say. If he was the one standing before the UN, if he was the one standing before Congress, if he was the one in the ballot box, I will tell you the values that I think Jesus would hold. And I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should vote for big government or small government. Whether you think it's the role of the government or not to be helping people eat. I will tell you that Jesus values people eating. That Jesus cares about the least of these. And I will tell you that with the work we do with the food pantry, I can tell you that the concern is great right now. Some people come through this line this month just for the turkey. Because they need that. They need that little help. And it's worth it to them to stand in line for hours in order to get that. And it's not going to be there this year. Do we care? Do we care about the well-being of our neighbors? People. Do not fall into the politics of it. Do not lose sight of the people. Don't lose sight of the people. Jesus never lost sight of the people.